1992, during a time when South Africa was standing on the edge of historic transformation, a small coin quietly entered circulation. It was the 1-cent coin, a piece so tiny and ordinary that almost no one imagined it could ever become interesting or valuable. People saw it as the smallest form of money, the kind of coin that often rolled onto car seats, disappeared into couch cushions, or was left behind on shop counters because it seemed hardly worth the effort to pick up. Yet this modest coin carried more history and significance than most people realized. The 1992 1-cent coin was produced as part of South Africa's regular currency system. It was struck mainly from copper-plated steel, giving it a warm copper color that made it shine when new. The coin was small and lightweight, designed for everyday transactions where every cent counted. At the time, inflation had not yet pushed small denominations completely out of practical use, so coins like the 1 cent still had a place in markets, small shops, and public transport payments. On one side of the coin appeared the year 1992, marking the moment in which it was minted. Around the design were the words identifying the country, showing its national identity during an era that would soon change dramatically. The design also featured natural imagery associated with South Africa, reflecting the country's connection to its land and wildlife. Even though it was a tiny coin, its design was detailed and carefully crafted, something that collectors today admire when they examine surviving examples. During the early 1990s, South Africa was undergoing deep political and social change. The world was watching as the country moved away from decades of division toward a new democratic future. While political negotiations and historic decisions were happening on the national stage, everyday life continued for millions of people. And part of that everyday life included coins like the 1 cent being passed from one hand to another. Every day these coins traveled through grocery stores, street markets, bus stations, and neighborhood shops. Children sometimes received them as change after buying small sweets. Shopkeepers kept them in cash drawers, counting them carefully at the end of the day. Many families stored spare coins in jars or small containers at home, planning to exchange them later for paper money once enough had been collected. Despite this constant movement through the economy, very few people paid attention to the 1-cent coin itself. It was simply too common and too small to attract interest. People cared more about larger coins or banknotes that had real purchasing power. The smallest denomination was often treated almost like an afterthought. As the years passed, economic conditions began to shift. Prices slowly increased, and the purchasing power of the smallest coins began to fade. Eventually, the 1-cent coin no longer served a practical purpose in daily transactions. Businesses began rounding prices, and handling extremely small change became inconvenient. Over time, the coin quietly disappeared from circulation. When governments decide to remove small denominations from active use, many coins are returned to banks and later melted down or recycled. Others remain scattered among the public, forgotten in drawers, storage boxes, and piggy banks. This gradual disappearance creates an interesting situation for collectors because the number of surviving coins slowly becomes smaller. For many years, the 1992 1-cent coin remained largely ignored by collectors. Because millions had originally been produced, it seemed unlikely that the coin would ever become special. But the world of coin collecting often works in unexpected ways. What appears common today can become surprisingly rare decades later. One of the most important factors that changes the value of any coin is its condition. Coins that circulate for years usually develop scratches, worn edges, and faded designs. The more a coin travels from hand to hand, the more its details slowly disappear. Collectors refer to this process as wear. A coin that has heavy wear may still be interesting historically, but it rarely attracts strong demand from serious collectors. On the other hand, a coin that somehow survives in nearly perfect condition becomes much more desirable. These coins may have been stored carefully from the beginning or saved by someone who recognized their potential importance. When collectors examine coins, they look closely at several details. They check whether the original shine from the mint is still visible. They inspect the edges and lettering to see if they remain sharp and clear. Even small scratches or marks can affect a coin's grade and influence its desirability in the collector market. For the 1992 1-cent coin, most surviving pieces show heavy signs of circulation. After all, they were designed to be used every day, not preserved in protective holders. But occasionally a coin appears that seems almost untouched by time. Its copper surface still reflects light, the date remains crisp, and the design features are fully visible. These rare high-grade examples begin to attract attention from collectors who specialize in South African currency. Some collectors focus on coins from specific historical periods, especially those connected to major political or economic transitions. Because the early 1990s mark such an important moment in South Africa's history, coins from that era carry additional interest. Another factor that sometimes increases a coin's appeal is the possibility of mint variations or unusual production characteristics. During the minting process, small differences can occur. These differences may involve slight changes in lettering, alignment, or metal composition. Most people would never notice them, but experienced collectors often study these details carefully. If a coin displays an unusual characteristic that appears only in a small number of pieces, it can quickly become the focus of collector excitement. Specialists begin comparing examples, documenting differences, and discussing the discovery within collecting communities. Over time, these variations can transform a once ordinary coin into a sought-after rarity. The story of coins becoming valuable years later is not new. Throughout history, many pieces of everyday currency have eventually gained importance simply because they survived when others disappeared. Coins that once bought bread, candy, or bus rides sometimes end up in museums or prestigious private collections. For people who collect coins seriously, the search itself is part of the excitement. They visit antique markets, browse estate sales, and examine old jars of spare change hoping to discover something unusual. Occasionally, a coin appears in a place where no one expected it, reminding everyone that hidden treasures can still exist in ordinary locations. The 1992 1-cent coin fits perfectly into this kind of story. At first glance, it looks simple and common. But when collectors think about the historical moment it represents, the shrinking number of surviving pieces, and the possibility of rare high-grade examples, the coin begins to feel far more intriguing. Imagine opening an old wooden box that belonged to a family member and finding several small copper coins resting inside. At first, they might seem like ordinary leftovers from the past, but among them could be a perfectly preserved 1992 1-cent coin, its surface still bright despite the passing decades. Moments like this inspire collectors around the world. They remind people that history is not only recorded in books or photographs, but also in small physical objects that once traveled through everyday life. Coins are especially powerful in this way because they connect directly to the hands of the people who use them. The 1-cent coin from 1992 passed through markets where vendors sold fresh fruit and vegetables. It moved across shop counters where customers purchased bread, milk, and small household items. It might have been given to a child as part of their first experience handling money. Each coin carried silent stories from the lives of the people who used it. Today, many collectors search through coin collections hoping to find pieces from that era in exceptional condition. They carefully store them in protective holders to prevent scratches or environmental damage. Some even send their coins to professional grading services where experts examine them and assign official condition ratings. When a coin receives a very high grade from a respected grading service, its reputation within the collector community grows. Buyers become more confident about its authenticity and condition, which can significantly increase demand. Auctions featuring rare coins often attract participants from many different countries. In the modern world, online platforms allow collectors to share discoveries instantly. A photograph of a rare coin can travel across the globe within minutes, reaching enthusiasts who study similar pieces. Discussions begin about mint quality, rarity, and potential value. For a coin like the 1992 South Africa 1-center, the true fascination lies not only in its metal or design but also in the journey it has taken through time. From busy markets to quiet drawers, from forgotten jars to collector showcases, each surviving piece carries a connection to the past. What once seemed like the least important coin in someone's pocket may now represent a tiny but meaningful piece of history. It reminds collectors that value is not always obvious at the moment something is created. Sometimes decades must pass before the true significance of an object becomes clear. The next time someone discovers an old coin among their belongings, it might be worth taking a closer look. Details like the date, the condition, and the design could reveal something far more interesting than expected. A coin that once held almost no purchasing power might now attract curiosity from collectors and historians alike. Stories like this continue to inspire people to explore the world of coin collecting. The excitement of discovery, the appreciation of craftsmanship, and the connection to historical moments all combine to create a fascinating hobby enjoyed by millions of people around the world. And sometimes, hidden among ordinary coins, there may be a truly extraordinary example waiting to be recognized. A perfectly preserved 1992 South Africa 1-center coin could capture the attention of collectors who understand its rarity and historical significance. In the most extraordinary and unlikely scenario, An exceptionally rare and perfectly preserved example could be talked about as reaching an estimated value of $70 million.